Hi folks, it's Bob from Mountain Crest Farm. Oh me, pretty blue sky today, which means it's going to be hotter than the dickens. Oh well, it is August and this is Georgia. What should I expect? Oh me, here we are on Thursday. You're seeing this on Friday. And all week, I have tried to figure out how to address an issue and stay out of politics, because I don't like politics on this channel. I'm still going to stay out of politics, but it is impossible to totally ignore what happened last week in El Paso, Texas, and in Dayton, Ohio. Now, the politics of it is one side screaming for gun control, and the other side saying no, Second Amendment. That's the politics of it. Need to be past the politics of it, folks. There are people dying in large numbers because something is wrong. One side thinks it's too many guns. They think it's semi-automatic weapons like AR-15s. The other side says it's not guns, and the Second Amendment says shall not be infringed. I personally believe that. Nobody is addressing the cause. And I'm going to address the cause here. I'm not going to say people should have guns or shouldn't have guns, because that's not the problem. There's several problems. I can't speak to the last 3 mass shootings in America. The last 3 would be the Garlic Festival in California, the Walmart in El Paso, Texas, and the Bar District in Dayton, Ohio. Those are the last 3. And some facts I'm going to give you do not apply to those 3, because I haven't dug and done any research on them yet. But let's talk about every other mass shooting since Columbine High School in Colorado. Let's talk about every single one of them with 2 exceptions. With the exception of the San Bernardino shootings a few years ago, that was a radical Muslim terrorist and his wife, and with the exception of the nut job from the 32nd floor of the hotel in Las Vegas, shooting up the country music festival. With the exception of those 2, every mass shooting in America since Columbine has shared 2 common denominators. Well, there's more than 2 common denominators. Everybody was breathing air. Throw that one out. Everybody was a living human being, not a zombie. Throw that one out. But there are 2 characteristics that are appropriate to look at in every single instance, rather than, only one way to put it, rather than being in a single parent household, rather than being in a 2-parent household with a father and a mother, every single shooter was the product of a divorced family and a single mother raising her. No male role model to show them how a man acts. Because there was no real male role model, usually there was no real discipline in the house. Nothing will put the fear of God in a kid and straighten them up any faster than the sound of a strip of leather rapidly exiting 7 belt loops on a pair of Levi's. Yes, I believe in corporal punishment. I had corporal punishment when I was a kid. You don't see me shooting up schools. But discipline has been totally replaced with a pill. Kids nowadays are diagnosed with this or that or the other behavioral problem, usually ADD or ADHD, and they've had a pill shoved down their throat. Now, 10, 15 years ago, the popular pill was Ritalin. There's a bunch more now. That's the substitute for discipline now. Rather than tell a kid, no, calm down, you sit there and you pay attention, and punishing them if they don't, shove a pill down their throat. That's a common denominator of every single school shooter or mass shooter since Columbine. All of them. They were on or had been on psychotropic drugs, Ritalin and the like. Now, beyond the damage that psychotropic drugs does, let's talk about psychotropic drugs for a minute here. Do you know that if your kid, or I've got some people on here that watch my videos that are my age, your grandkid, do you know that if a kid is or has ever been prescribed a psychotropic drug, something like Ritalin, do you know they can never be an officer in the armed forces? They can enlist. They can be an NCO. They can get up through sergeant. They'll never be an officer. They'll never be a fighter pilot. They'll never get their wings in the Air Force. Never. Not if they've been prescribed a psychotropic drug. Do you know that if your child, grandchild, friend's kid is prescribed a psychotropic drug, that child will never hold a professional license? Now, y'all know I'm big on trade school, not going to college, but some things you got to go to college for, and some people should be in college. But if you've ever been on a psychotropic drug, if you want to be a lawyer, forget it. You can't get a license to be a lawyer. You want to be a doctor? Forget it. You can't be a licensed doctor. A CPA? Nope, that's a professional license. You cannot get a CPA's license if you've ever been on a psychotropic drug. Go ahead, they're real good for your kids, right? Kills a lot of their career options. But it makes it easy on the parent, because if the kid's on a psychotropic drug, the parent gets to do what it wants to do. Be their kid's best friend instead of being their parent. But that's one thing that all those shooters have in common. They've been on psychotropic drugs. Something else that all of them have in common. Every single mass shooter, every single mass shooter since Columbine, with the exception of San Bernardino and the hotel in Vegas, all of them were loners whose social life consisted of staring at a screen and specifically playing violent video games. They were addicted to violent video games. Now, how does a video game affect how you're going to act? Well, if you're going to sit there and say that video games won't affect your actions, then advertisers waste their money on ads. They put up something for 30 seconds and it affects your buying habits. Yeah. But a video game that a kid plays for hours and hours and hours won't affect their actions. Violent video games totally desensitize people to the humanity of another person. They're just another bunch of pixels on a screen. It's okay to kill them because you can do it over and over and over, play the game all you want to. There's nothing really happens. It's just pixels on a screen. And what makes it worse is the same kids that are addicted to that generally are addicted to a phone, period. They can't live without a phone. They've always got their nose buried in a smartphone. That's their social life. Between Facebook and WhatsApp and Tumblr and God, I don't know all of them. That's their social life. They don't deal with another person. They deal with a digitized image and a digitized voice of another person. They don't deal with something that bleeds. They lose their humanity. And if other people are nothing but pixels on a screen, whether it's in a video game or talking to them all the time on the phone or whatever, if they're just pixels on a screen, it's no big deal to kill them. No big deal. I think smartphones are one of the worst things in the world. Yes, I've got a smartphone. The camera on my smartphone is what I'm doing this video on. But I'll tell you what, other than these videos and answering the phone, you know, smartphone, my smartphone is pretty much a phone. It does these videos and a couple other pictures. It gets answered just like a telephone that used to have a wire that went to the wall. Yes, I text on it. And beyond that, that's about it. All the other things it can do, no. It is a smartphone. It is a cell phone. And that's pretty much how it gets used with the exception of these videos. But it's the life of a lot of people. There's people cannot get their nose out of these things. That's their social life. If that's everybody they interact with, if that's how they interact with everybody, it's no big deal to go kill a bunch of them. Because all they are is pixels on a screen. So discipline, or lack of it, discipline by pill, and the total depersonalization of people, especially that get addicted to things like violent video games. I think that's a good place to start if we want to stop all this. Are there other issues? Yeah. But I think that's a good place to start. Quit trying to be your kid's best friend. Start being their parent and quit medicating them instead of disciplining them. That's number one. And number two, get your kid's nose out of a phone. I've got a 19-year-old stepdaughter. She was forbidden to have a phone all the way through 18 and senior year in high school. I told her no. You know, if your stepdad wants you to have one, you have it over there. When you visit, fine, but you ain't gonna have a smartphone here. And all this, oh, but my child needs a smartphone. That's a bunch of crap. I never needed a smartphone when I was in school. Something happens in school and your parents need to be notified because of an emergency. There are still phones in the office and there's still a secretary there that'll call them. And if it's not an emergency, you got no business calling your kid or your kid calling you anyway. They're in school to be in school, you're at work to be at work, not to be yapping back and forth on the phone. But I think if we took care of those two things, parents need to be parents, not kids' best friend, and get kids' noses out of a damn blue screen. Not just on the violent video games, but especially on the violent video games. I think you'd see a big reduction in the problem. And now, the little bit I'm going to touch on the politics of it. I am sick and tired of hearing people scream and holler this past week about how horrendous El Paso and Dayton, Ohio were. They were terrible. But it was a total of what? Between 30 and 35 people dead, I think. Folks, this past weekend in El Paso and Dayton, Ohio, still wasn't as bad as every single month. every single month in the city of Chicago. That's 49 people dead every month in the city of Chicago. So, don't scream about one if you're just going to ignore the poor black people that die. You know, Black Lives Matter. They're people too. So, quit your screaming about this or that individual mass shooting. Start screaming about everybody that dies that shouldn't. And look at the problems and the solutions to that, instead of just one shooting here or there. Well, that's going to be it for today. A lot of you didn't stick through the end on this one, and I don't blame you. This video sucks, but it needed making. Now, at the end of this, there's something that makes it where no matter how bad this video sucks and no matter how bad the topic was, things will still get better. They will. You know why? Because number one, the tomb was empty. And because number two, he is alive. Now, despite this video, I'm going to go have an absolutely fantastic day. How about if y'all do the same thing? I'll see you next time. Bye.